Hey, it's Eddie here for the Best Buy blog, and in this video review we take a look at the Samsung Galaxy Watch Active2, Samsung's latest smartwatch that blends a little bit of the old and a little bit of the new. The Samsung Galaxy Watch Active2 comes only 6 months after the first Galaxy Watch Active. So why launch a watch so quickly after the first one? Well, it's because, in my opinion, this one is what the first one should have been. So some of the features and some of the additions that you see in this watch, which weren't in the first one, are a big reason why you should probably ignore the first watch and look only to this one. The two that stand out to me the most are the bezel, the touch-sensitive bezel. So Samsung watches in the past always had a physical rotating bezel that you can kind of just twist and turn around so that you can navigate the interface in a really, really effective way. It's one of the best things I've seen on any smartwatch. Unfortunately, when Samsung launched the first Galaxy Watch Active, they could not replicate that. To make the watch smaller, they had to get rid of the bezel completely. But there wasn't any other alternative. You had to basically swipe on the screen and do everything. In this case, now you have a touch-sensitive one on about the top half of the watch. It's not exactly the same, but there is haptic feedback to let you know that you've moved. So whether it's a step or a few steps, the haptic feedback tries to emulate that physical feeling that you would have gotten on the other watches. For the most part, it's okay. It's not the same. So you know, in the past where you may not have always had to look at the watch to do anything, in this case you probably will. So there is that sort of difference. You do have the option also to turn that feature off, but I don't think you will. I think you're going to like it for simple navigation. Chances are you're going to still be touching the screen a fair bit, but it's nothing like with the first Watch Active 2. The other one for me is the Spotify integration. So if you're a Spotify subscriber, you're going to love this. In the past, Samsung has been able to work with Spotify as far as controlling what is playing on the phone, but not in any way to just play directly from the watch. Well, until now. So the Watch Active 2 is the first attempt at this, and it works pretty well. So it's not just a matter of controlling what's on the phone, it's just actually removing the phone from the equation entirely, pairing the watch with a pair of Bluetooth headphones, and going from there. Now, the way this works is that you can actually store playlists and songs, just like you would on the Spotify app, onto the watch. The watch itself has, now it's 4 gigabytes of storage on paper, but it's actually 2.5 gigs in reality. Once you factor in all the apps and the ties and operating system and all that, you have 2.5 gigs to work with. So you can still squeeze in a fair amount of music in that space. So if you want to save a couple playlists, especially for workouts or things like that, you can do that, and it's great. It works really, really well. You can access everything on the menu. The menus are pretty well laid out too. Controls are pretty good, and it works well when paired with headphones. So if you want to cut off the phone from a workout, let's say you're going to a gym and you really don't want to bring the phone with you, this is an excellent way to do it. Now, when it comes to the exercise side of things, nothing really has changed tremendously really from the first watch to this one. The tracking is very similar, but the tracking is good. So the watch will automatically track a few exercises, I think it's about 6 right now, where it will know that you're doing it. So if you're going for a walk or a run, it should kick in automatically. For all the other ones, you will have to set it manually. You can also add on the main interface additional exercises so that you have shortcuts to them. If you're doing reps, it should be able to know when you finished a rep and when you start a rep. It's not perfect. There are times when it totally gets it wrong, but there are certain exercises where I found that it worked pretty well, so that's always a good sign too. The one downside here, I mean, there are a lot of upsides. The one downside, I think, is just the app support. There's just not as many apps that will work on Tizen right now. Samsung does need to work on that. Watch faces are aplenty. If you want your watch to have a certain look on it, that's not going to be hard to do. You'll have plenty to choose from. But when it comes to using other apps, just whatever it may be, I mean, anything from a sports app or a messaging app, a mapping app, anything like that, stuff that you would typically want to use in some way, those unfortunately are not in abundance. So there is that one issue that seems to still vex Samsung when it comes to its smartwatches. And lastly, I'll just touch on a few key points here very quickly. The blood pressure monitor that Samsung hyped up in the first watch was not mentioned at all in this one, and for good reason, because it's not ready for prime time yet. The ECG that Samsung said is also expected to come is not available yet, and that will have to go through approval with Health Canada before it is coming here anyway. So don't even buy the watch if you're looking for that. It is not functioning yet. And battery life is pretty good. On moderate usage, you're definitely looking at about 2 days or longer, but if you're really going heavy duty on the watch, it is probably gonna last less than that, so be prepared to charge this fairly often. But as far as how it feels, it's comfortable. You can change the bands. If you have bands from the first watch, they will fit this one. It's the same size, everything's the same. You get the 40mm or the 44mm sizes. So pretty much everything is as you would expect it to be. The heart rate monitor, all that stuff, more or less works the same way, which is a good thing because it did work well in the previous watch. So that pretty much covers it. I mean, if you have the watch, the first Galaxy Watch, you don't necessarily need to upgrade unless you feel like the haptic feedback from the touch-sensitive bezel or the Spotify integration or the slightly better battery life are going to be factors for you. Otherwise, you don't need to upgrade in those cases. But if you are looking for a Samsung watch, you have an older Samsung watch, you're looking for something smaller and something a little bit more dynamic, that's got really what the first watch Active should have had, then this actually will be a good one for you. And that's my review of the Samsung Galaxy Watch Active 2 for the Best Buy blog. I'm Teddy K. Thanks for watching.